Welcome to another deep dive, and this time we're tackling a topic that's had its share of buzz, the metaverse. Um, but it feels like all that hype from, what was it, a couple of years ago, has quieted down some.
Yeah, it definitely made a big splash.
So what's the reality beyond the headlines?
Yeah.
Is it really the future, or just another tech fad that faded away?
We're going to dig into that. We've got a ton of articles, research, and notes here, not just about the tech itself, but, about how the metaverse might actually change the way we work, buy things, even learn.
It's about potential futures. Always fascinating stuff.
By the end of this deep dive, you'll have a solid understanding of what the metaverse is, why it matters, even if, all that initial hype has died down.
Right.
So let's start with the basics. What are we even talking about when we say metaverse?
Well, you can't just point to one thing and say that's it. It's more like a blend of digital and physical spaces.
Access through computers and, tech that makes you feel like you're really there, immersive technology. The big idea is to create this persistent, shared 3D world, kind of like our digital selves,
Oh, got
represented as avatars where we can interact not just with each other, but with this virtual environment. And what's really interesting is that this idea, it's been around longer than you might think.
You mean longer than just the latest VR
And no
craze?
longer. Like, think back to 1962.
Wow.
There was this thing called the Sensorama. It was a machine that basically let you experience, get this, a simulated motorcycle ride through New York City.
No way.
Yeah, it had 3D film, a vibrating chair. They even piped in smells to make it feel real. Crazy, right?
That's wild. So the idea's been around for decades. Why did the metaverse suddenly become this, like, massive hype machine in 2021?
2021. That was the year of the metaverse bubble. Meta, made a big splash with that rebranding. And then there was a flood of investment into all things metaverse. It felt like every company wanted a piece of that digital pie.
Yeah, I remember. It was everywhere.
Yeah.
But then things kind of went quiet. Did the
Yeah.
bubble just, like, burst?
In a way, yeah. There were financial losses, especially for Meta. They put billions into their reality labs, and it wasn't all sunshine and roses.
Right.
Layoffs, projects got scaled back. And then you had some pushback against the term metaverse itself.
It's true. Like when Apple came out with their Vision Pro, the headset,
Uh-huh.
they were very careful not to use the M word. They called it, like the gateway to spatial computing or something. And even Disney, they shut down their whole metaverse division.
It's a mixed bag, for sure.
So is that it then? Is the metaverse dead? Just a flash in the pan.
I wouldn't go that far. While things have definitely cooled down, the tech behind the metaverse, VR, AR, that stuff's still evolving fast.
Okay, so maybe it's less about the hype and more about what's actually happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that tech then. What's actually powering the metaverse?
Well, it's not just VR headsets, although those are a big part of it.
Right.
We're talking about a bunch of technologies working together. So you've got virtual reality, that's VR, the classic, strap on the headset, and you're transported to another world.
Like in Ready Player One?
Yeah, like that, fully immersive. But then there's augmented reality, AR, which is more about taking the real world and adding digital elements to it.
So like Pokemon Go.
Exactly. You see those creatures through your phone on top of the real world.
Right, right.
So AR is more about enhancing what's already there, not replacing it. And then there's mixed reality, MR, which kind of blends the two, VR and AR. You interact with virtual things, but you're still anchored in the real world.
Okay, so VR, AR, MCR, MEFR.
Got it. But what else is essential for making the metaverse really work?
Two big ones. Artificial intelligence, AI, and blockchain.
Oh yeah, those are big. AI is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, creating realistic avatars, making interactions feel believable, even helping to manage those virtual economies.
So it's like the brains of the operation.
Yeah, pretty much. And then you have blockchain, which is all about decentralization, making sure transactions are secure and giving users ownership of their digital stuff in the metaverse.
Okay, blockchain. That's a whole other rabbit hole.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe we'll have to do a whole separate deep dive on that sometime. But for now, I'm curious, beyond the tech, what are some of the real-world applications for this stuff? Is it just about games and entertainment?
Oh, it's way beyond that. One area that's really taking off is the industrial metaverse. They're using things called digital twins.
Digital twins, what are those?
Imagine a virtual replica of something real, like, say, A jet engine.
Okay.
Companies use these digital twins to design products, test how they'll work in different situations,
Yeah.
monitor performance, even predict when they might need maintenance.
So it's like a virtual test lab.
Exactly. And the possibilities go way beyond just manufacturing. Imagine VR training for surgeons or pilots.
Wow.
Much safer, more cost-effective, and you can practice complex stuff over and over.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then there's e-commerce. Virtual try-ons for clothes, 3D showrooms for furniture. You can even have virtual products that are linked to real-world goods.
So it's like blending online and offline shopping in a whole new way.
Exactly. And beyond that, think about the potential for the metaverse to change how we work.
Okay.
You could have more productive teams, more engaging collaboration, maybe even people being more satisfied with their jobs.
It's like a whole new way of thinking about work.
Right.
This is pretty mind-blowing. It seems like we're only beginning to understand how the metaverse could, impact so many parts of our lives.
Mm.
But before we go too far, how does all this fit in with all the talk about Web 3.0? Are those two things connected?
They are definitely intertwined. In the simplest terms, Web 3.0 is about creating a more decentralized internet, one where users have more control over their data and their online identities. And guess what? Blockchain is a key player in that vision.
So instead of, the big tech companies calling all the shots, Web 3.0 is about more shared ownership, making the internet more open. Is that right?
Exactly. Well, you got it. And the metaverse is likely going to be a big part of that shift. The values behind both, things like decentralization, user ownership, open systems, they all align really well.
So the relationship between those two is still, developing.
It definitely is something to watch for sure.
Speaking of things to watch, who are the big players shaping the future of the metaverse?
Well, rather than just list a bunch of company names, it's more interesting to look at the different approaches they're taking.
Okay.
You have Meta, who are still all in on VR, despite some of those setbacks they've had. Their vision seems really focused on creating these immersive virtual worlds. And then you have Apple, they're being more cautious, talking about spatial computing instead of the metaverse. But their technology, especially with their new headset, is playing a big role in this.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And what about NVIDIA? They seem to be going in a different direction.
Yeah, they're all about the industrial metaverse, providing the tools for companies to build and connect their own virtual spaces with their Omniverse platform.
So are we headed for a multiverse? Like a whole bunch of connected or maybe even isolated metaverses?
That's the big question. Will one platform end up dominating, like what happened with social media, or will we have this more fragmented ecosystem? It's early days, so it's hard to say.
That is a really interesting question. It feels like we've talked about a lot of the potential good stuff, but there had to be some downsides too, right?
Of course, we can't ignore the potential problems. Privacy is a big one.
Yeah, absolutely.
The metaverse is going to generate tons of data about us, what we do, what we like, even our emotions. And then there's the potential for addiction.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And those issues we already see with social media, things like harassment, misinformation, that stuff could be magnified in the metaverse.
It's kind of like we're taking those challenges and amplifying them in a 3D world.
It's a valid concern.
It's almost like the metaverse could become a reflection of our best and worst tendencies as humans.
That's a powerful way to put it. I think the key is finding a balance. We have to acknowledge the potential downsides without ignoring the possibilities.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And we have to be thoughtful about how this all develops. It's not just about the technology itself, but about the values we build into it and the choices we make as it evolves. This is something we really need to discuss carefully and thoughtfully as a society.
Absolutely.
And the choices we make now will shape this digital future for, generations to come. It's a digital frontier, that's for sure. And like any frontier, there are, opportunities and dangers.
So if we want to make sure the metaverse develops responsibly, where do we even start?
Well, first things first, we have to address those privacy concerns. I mean, the metaverse is going to generate a massive amount of data about us, our behaviors, preferences, even our emotions.
Yeah.
We need strong regulations, ethical frameworks in place. So that data is handled responsibly and users have real control over their information.
It's like taking the data privacy issues we already have online and making them, I don't know, 100 times bigger.
Right.
Because in the metaverse, it's not just what you click on, it's your every move, your facial expressions, all of that could be tracked.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual privacy either. It's about bias,
Oh, right.
discrimination in those virtual spaces. If algorithms are shaping our experiences, we got to make sure they're designed fairly, that
Right.
they're not just going to make existing inequalities worse.
It's like the metaverse could become this mirror,
Mm.
reflecting both the good and the bad about us.
That's a great way to put it. We have to be proactive, not reactive. Bring in diverse voices, ethicists, social scientists, policymakers, and, most importantly, users themselves.
That makes sense. It can't just be the tech companies making all the decisions.
No way.
It has to be a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
Everyone working together to figure out the impact this is all going to have.
Absolutely. And we got to think about accessibility from the beginning.
Yeah, that's crucial.
The metaverse shouldn't become another exclusive club, right? It has to be inclusive, accessible to people of all backgrounds, abilities.
I really don't want to see the metaverse make those digital divides in the real world even worse.
Exactly. And then there's the whole question of governance.
Oh, yeah, governance. Who's in charge?
Right. Who sets the rules in the metaverse?
Yeah.
How do we resolve disputes?
Hmm.
How do we create a safe and equitable experience for everyone?
It kind of feels like we're heading into uncharted territory here, like
Mhm.
the Wild West of the digital age.
It is uncharted. And that's why these conversations are so important right now. While the metaverse is still being built, we need those guidelines, those ethical frameworks, maybe even like new forms of governance that can handle the unique challenges of this virtual frontier.
It's a lot to figure out.
It is.
But it seems like the stakes are pretty high here. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not just talking about building new tech. We're talking about like reshaping how we interact as humans.
That's the big picture. But despite the challenges, the metaverse also offers these incredible opportunities for connection, for creativity, for innovation.
Okay, so I got to ask, what are you most excited about when it comes to the metaverse?
Honestly, for me, it's the potential to foster empathy, understanding. Imagine being able to actually step into someone else's shoes, literally, experience the world from their perspective. That could be transformative. Help us bridge those divides, build more compassionate societies.
Yeah, it's like the metaverse could help us challenge our own biases
Yeah,
by giving us that firsthand experience of what it's like to be someone else.
exactly. And I'm also really fascinated by the potential for creativity, for innovation. When you take away the limitations of the physical world, who knows what people will create?
It's like opening with all these new possibilities
Mm-hmm.
for art, music, design, even science and technology.
Absolutely. And we can't forget about entertainment, social connection. I think the metaverse has the potential to be a lot of fun, and that's important too.
Yeah, for sure. It's not all about the serious stuff. It's about creating those spaces for joy, connection, sharing experiences, even if those experiences are happening in a digital world.
I agree. I think that's what'll draw people in, that fun, that connection.
It kind of reminds me of the early days of the internet.
Yeah.
When people were just starting to explore what it could do. There was that sense of like wonder,
Right.
excitement.
It's a great comparison. I think we're starting to see that same energy around the metaverse, full of potential. It's inspiring.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely something worth paying attention to,
It is.
even if you're not ready to jump in just yet.
Absolutely. And, as with any new technology, there are going to be bumps along the way, setbacks, mistakes, unintended consequences. That's just how it goes.
So how do we navigate that?
How do we make sure the metaverse develops in a way that's good for everyone?
Right. How do we avoid creating something we regret?
That's the big question. It starts with being aware of the ethical implications.
So it's not just about the tech itself. It's about making sure it aligns with our values.
Yes.
Thinking about the impact it's going to have.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
having these open, honest conversations about the potential risks and benefits. Being willing to challenge our assumptions, question the status quo, and really listen to different perspectives.
So it sounds like approaching this whole thing with a sense of like humility and responsibility is really important. We're building something that could have a huge impact. We need to be thoughtful about it.
We do. We're all in this together, shaping the future, one decision at a time.
It really feels like we're at this like turning point,
Yeah.
figuring out what this new world is going to be.
Yeah, and you have to remember, it's not going to look the same everywhere, right? The metaverse, it's probably going to evolve differently in different parts of the world.
It's always interesting.
Local cultures, values, regulations, all that's going to play a role in shaping how it develops.
So it's not like one single metaverse.
Right.
It's more like I don't know, a bunch of different interconnected experiences.
Yeah. Kind of reflecting all the different ways people experience the world, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's what makes it so exciting, you know? The metaverse, it could be this truly global thing, connecting people in ways we can't even imagine yet.
It's like the metaverse could be a digital reflection of like all of humanity.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, it really highlights the potential, right? But we got to remember, it's early days. We're still just figuring this all out,
So what would you say to someone who's just starting to explore the metaverse? Like, where do they begin?
honestly. Just be curious. You
Yeah.
know, don't be afraid to jump in and explore. There's so much out there already. Virtual worlds, games, social platforms, educational stuff. There's something for everyone.
So just start playing around, see what catches your eye.
Exactly. And experiment, you know? Try different platforms, different avatars. See what feels right for you.
Find your own little corner of the metaverse.
Exactly. And as you're exploring, think about the experiences you're having. What do you like? What don't you like? And think about the ethics of it, you know? The tech you're using.
So don't just passively consume it, actually engage with it. Ask those questions.
Right. And don't be afraid to share your thoughts. Join online communities, talk to people, help shape how this all develops. Your voice matters.
It's like we're all pioneers in this new world, figuring it out as we go.
Yeah, I like that. We're all explorers, builders, creators in this digital frontier. And the possibilities are, well, they're limitless.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. We've
Yeah.
talked about the tech, the potential, the challenges. I got to say, I'm feeling pretty optimistic about it all.
Me too. It's been a really great discussion.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. If the metaverse becomes as much a part of our lives as the internet is now, what aspects of our, quote, real lives might we see, kind of mirrored in it?
That's a great question to think about. The metaverse is not just some separate digital thing, it's an extension of ourselves, our humanity.
Mm.
And the decisions we're making now, they're going to determine what that extension looks like.
So what role do you want to play in shaping it? Are you an explorer, a builder, maybe a skeptic? There's room for everyone. Think about it. We might even do another deep dive on specific parts of the metaverse,
That would be fun.
based on what we hear from you. Until then, keep exploring, keep asking those questions, and, keep imagining what's possible.